Hey guys, welcome back. So today's Halloween video is going to be this tutorial of Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy. This is Yondu if he was 35 years younger. So I'm starting with a ball cap application. If you've missed my tutorial on it, then be sure to check that out first and then come back because that's where we're starting from. I will link it on screen and in the description bar for you. So as I just mentioned, Michael Rooker, who plays Yondu, is about 35 years older than my model Billy. So I'm going to start with a little bit of old Age Stipple just around the eyes to give the illusion that he's a little bit older up close than he actually is. I got this old Age Stipple from the MakeUp Armory and I will link them in the description bar below. So I cleaned Bill's skin with some alcohol and then I'm stippling on a very light layer of the old Age Stipple. Then on a cool setting, I'm drying that with a hairdryer while the skin's still stretched. Once that goes translucent, I'm then going to powder it while the skin is still stretched with some translucent powder. This old Age Stipple comes in three forms, A, B and C. A is the lightest form of wrinkling, B is a bit heavier, and C is going to be really full on, great for use on hands. This is what it looks like up close. I'm using B. You can also use this on other areas of the face, not just the eyes. To create the scars on Yondu's face, I'm going to be using Sculpt Gel. This comes in both flesh tone and clear, and you mix equal parts of A and B in volume or weight. In the pack you also get part C, which allows you to create flexibility in your silicone. For example, if you're creating a neck wound and you need some stretch. I'm taking a white kohl pencil to map out the scar shape on the face before I apply the silicone. Make sure you've got all your lines mapped out before you start mixing your silicone because it can go off quite quickly, so you want all your line work done so that you're ready to apply it. The great thing about using a white kohl pencil is that if you make any mistakes, they're easy to rub away with your finger. Also, using white means it's not going to show through underneath the silicone. There's no easy way for me to describe exactly the pattern that I'm creating. I've simply got up a reference image of Yondu and I'm following and adapting the pattern to fit Bill's head. Don't worry about it being identical, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to resemble the scars. Here I've mixed equal parts of A and B and I've added in a very small amount of C because the scars come down onto the cheek and inevitably Bill's going to talk, so I'd like a little bit of stretch to the silicone. I'm using my metal spatula to apply this and I'm creating a small sausage shape using the spatula to drag the silicone down following the pattern that I've created for the scars. Now I've got quite a steady hand, but if you don't, I would suggest try starting at the very top of the head and working your way down. That way there's less chance of you accidentally putting your hand into any of the wet silicone while it's still going off. So as you can see, I'm using the sides of the spatula to smooth out the sides of that sausage shaped silicone so it looks like it moulds into the skin rather than just plonked on top of the skin. If you're new to working with Sculpt Gel, I would suggest making very small batches to begin with because the surface is the first part to go off, so everything that you've made on your palette is going to go off at the same time as the silicone on your face. If you don't have Sculpt Gel, an alternative for the scars is to use a hot glue gun on the table to create the scars and then you can peel them off and then use something like eyelash glue, ProAiir or even spirit gum to stick that to your head. If you're intrigued to see what else you can create with Sculpt Gel, then Stuart Bray has a DVD out called Spectacular Sculpt Gel and he shows you some weird and wonderful ways to use it. It's so versatile and it's one of the most popular products on the market. So just out of shot you can probably see that I've got a tissue in my hand and I keep cleaning my spatula each time. So I apply the product, I clean it again and then go in and shape the gel. And that's the best way to stop yourself from getting all sticky and in a muddle. So it takes a little while to create the scars, probably need to give yourself a good 20 minutes. And then it can take a good 10 minutes to completely go off. I tend to find the more of component C that you add, the longer it takes to harden. Yondu has the most distinctive Mohawk fin, and Jack over at Gorilla Props has made this DIY one for me, but not only that, he has filmed a tutorial on how to create it, so if you want to make your very own DIY Yondu fin, head on over to his channel and check out the tutorial. I'll add a link to that video at the end of this one, and I'll also link it in the description bar for you. So we've got a rough idea of where it needs to sit. Now we need to map out where we're going to be gluing it, so I get Bill to hold the fin in place. And then using the same white kohl pencil, I'm drawing a line around the entire fin so I know exactly where it's going to sit and I can take it off, glue it and then replace it in the exact same spot. Now as this isn't going to be touching the skin, you can use pretty much anything strong to glue this down. Just whatever you do, make sure it's not going to interfere with your ball cap. I'm going to be using medical grade spirit gum. I found this to work absolutely fine, but you'll see at the end of the tutorial I'm going to be ripping this off, so for me longevity isn't an issue. But for those of you that want to be able to wear it all day long, test your glue out on a little bit of your bald cap that you're going to be cutting away, just to make sure whatever you use, it doesn't melt the bald cap. Once my spirit gun's gone completely tacky, I then get Bill to hold this in place until the fin can stand up on its own. I've now mixed up some Sculpt Gel in clear, and I'm going to be using this to build up around the side of the fin. It's supposed to look like it's come through the skin, so we're going to use the silicone to build up the lip. The whole top layer of Michael Rooker's head was a prosthetic piece that had been built up, so the only way I'm going to be able to do this without casting Bill's head and creating a prosthetic piece is to layer the silicone in a slope going from Bill's head up towards the fin. So I'm starting off by creating a small batch of the silicone first, and I'm filling in very close to the fin to make sure there's no gaps. And I'm using my spatula at an angle to make sure we get that nice slope. That will be the foundation for us to then build upon. If you get any on your fin, just make sure you take that off before it dries, and then smooth it down onto the head. You then want to work all the way around the entire fin, making sure you've got that first layer down, so then by the time you've made your way around to the other side and completed it, the first side should have gone off. I haven't put any of component C in this, so it does go off a lot quicker than when we were creating the scars. So I've completed the foundation layer on both sides and the back of the fin, and now I'm just completing the front. Again, keep a tissue in your hand to clean your spatula after each time you smooth over it, and try to make the seam between the silicone and your skin as seamless as possible. You can kind of see when I stand behind him that we're getting that nice cone shape. So now we've built up the slope between Bill's head and the fin, we're going to start to create that lip. This is what's going to make it look as though the fin has come through the skin. When you look at the actual makeup on Michael Rooker, it looks as though it could be wax that's just been thumbed into place. You should know what I mean when you actually take a look at it. So you could use wax, which some other YouTubers have done, but sometimes when you paint over wax or it gets warm, it starts to separate from the skin, and then you're going to see the seams of where the wax starts on the head, whereas with the silicone you're not going to get that. So as you can see, I'm using my spatula to manipulate the silicone in place. I'm pushing it up against the fin and making sure that lip is quite thick. Once you've got the shape, you then want to smooth out the edges with the side of your spatula to make sure that the transition from your head up to the lip is seamless. If you get any silicone on the fin, like I said before, remove it before it goes off. And also run your spatula between the fin and the silicone lip so that there's a little bit of a subtle trench, so it looks like it's come through the skin. Get your reference images up and use that as a guide as well as the tutorial. Before I go on to paint the skin, I'm going to be using MAC's Chromaline in High Def Cyan. This is a waterproof cream product that's perfect to use around the eyes, and this is the same one that was actually used on Michael Rooker for the Yondu makeup for the movie. I'm using a flat shader brush to apply this to Billy's eyelids. I'm also going to work that into his eyebrow hair and around the bottom half of his eyes. To apply this over the old Age Stipple, just work it in small circular motions, but you can also stretch the skin out with your fingers to make sure you really get in between those tiny wrinkles. And you want to do this to both eyes before you move on to the paint. The paint I'm going to use is phenomenal. This is the ProAiir Hybrid Makeup. This is the exact paint that was used on Michael Rooker for Yondu, and it is so affordable. I was so excited when I found it. So this contains no water, and it blends together a set of water repellent makeup ingredients. So it's completely waterproof and can last up to 3 days. These come in an array of colours, they're completely safe to use on children, and they're so simple to remove. And the best part about it is there's no staining. So having spoke to Donna over at Show Offs, she said to me the best method to apply is with a Kabuki brush. Make sure you give the bottle a good shake before you use it, and then pour a little bit out onto your palette. You need to move quite quickly with it because unlike a water-based paint, this one dries quite quickly. I like to work in circular motions to get the majority of the colour on, and then I use a stipple motion over the edges so that I'm not left with any harsh edges as it dries. This paint is really opaque, especially when you're using it on skin. I'm obviously using it over a ball cap and silicone, so I'm working in very fine layers, but as soon as you put it onto skin, this will cover a tattoo. It's so opaque. Being a makeup artist that's worked on films, I did not envy the idea of what the makeup artist must have gone through to keep this makeup touched up. But after receiving this paint and having to play with it and using it for this tutorial, I now realise there would have been little to no touch-ups required for this makeup because this paint does not budge. If for instance you only want to use this paint for a little while, then you can apply a lotion to your skin first, and that's going to make the removal so much quicker. The quickest way to remove this paint is to use a liquid soap. Apply the liquid soap to your skin with no water and just keep working in circular motions. It will look as though the paint's not going anywhere, and then as soon as you wipe it off, the paint will come with it. It's literally like magic. To remove it from your brushes, you can apply dish soap, such as washing up liquid, work that into the bristles with no water, and then once the paint's broken up, you can then rinse the bristles. Or you can use 99% alcohol and that will remove the paint from the bristles. It can be used with an airbrush, a non-porous sponge. The product can dry on the tools, but it's okay because you can just reactivate it with a small amount of IPA. I found when I was going over the silicone, I needed to use a stipple motion and build that up in layers. As it dried, I was able to put another layer on and this became more opaque. So once I'd finished going over the silicone, I decided to pop a little bit of the paint into an airbrush, keeping my PSI between 15 and 20, and then I went over the entire face and head just to give it a nice light dusting for a more complete finish. Now because there's no water in this, there's no fogging, so you can airbrush without that mist in the air. And as this is a hybrid makeup, it's formulated with cosmetic alcohol, the same kind that's used in perfumes, hairspray, liquid eyeliners, and not to be confused with IPA. IPA is a sanitary alcohol, it's not the same as cosmetic alcohol. I'm now going into my FX Skin Illustrator palette and I'm mixing together Bruised Tone and Ultra Blue to create the veins. If I was doing this on skin, I would make it quite wishy-washy so it's very faint, but on Yondu they're very visible. So I have a reference image on my phone of Yondu, which I've been referring to for the whole tutorial, and I'm copying the placement of these veins. The brush I'm using is a small eyeliner brush. To create the veins, I draw one main squiggly line, and then I create small branches off of that. The films are quite dark, a lot of Yondu scenes are in the galaxy itself, so these needed to be dark enough that they would still be visible on screen. Don't forget to do this on both sides of the head, and I'm also doing some on the neck and around the jawline. The great thing is you can also rest your hand on the paintwork because it's not going to go anywhere. Don't forget this is smudge proof and waterproof. Michael Rooker naturally has lighter brows than Bill, so I'm brushing through some of the matte Chromaline. I'm going in with another paint from ProAiir. This one is a slightly darker blue and I'm going to use this on a fine liner brush just to paint in the wrinkle marks on the forehead. I could have used the Skin Illustrator palette, but this particular colour was perfect for what I was looking for. I wanted to create some more theatrical lines as Michael Rooker is a lot older than Billy, so I can afford to go a bit heavier. I didn't realise, but my camera actually didn't film the very last part, which was just me dusting some black eyeshadow in small patches on the face, which makes Yondu look like he's been in a few battles, he's a bit unkempt and generally a bit weathered. We had so much fun filming it and Bill really got into character.
Yeah, the thing people don't know about me is I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
I'm recording it.
Oh god. Oh god. Oh! Abu! Abu! Chromaline!
I hope you all enjoyed watching it as much as we did making it. A massive thank you to Bill for being such a great sport and a brilliant Yondu. If you want to see more of Bill, I'll leave his channel and socials in the description bar for you. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to get back to you. You know the drill, hit subscribe if you haven't already done so. My previous tutorial will be on screen now, and if you want to follow me outside of YouTube, my social handles will be on screen.